Hello, everybody. I've got the Flamecaller player. I don't know if you probably play a lot more decks than Flamecaller, but I know you for Flamecaller and the three-color Flamecaller you took to the last league. But who are you and where can they find you?
Hi, my name is Roaring Turkey. Yeah, I am mostly known as a Flamecaller player. I piloted it to the top 8 in the last Sorcery League. I always liked Flamecaller. I really only before Flamecaller, I was a big Spirits player. That was like what I brought to the Courtesan Cup. But
Sorcerer
in
Spirits?
response to like the roots Sorcerer Spirits,
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But in response to the Roots meta that came out of that, I had to like drop that deck because getting to 6 mana twice as Sorcerer is really hard.
Yeah.
And then I just started working on Flamecaller, and I think it's a really good, really overlooked avatar that has a lot of like cool plays.
Yeah, no, I really like Flamecaller in the aggressive lists. I think the new one people like playing is a Witch aggressive list. I really like Flamecaller
Yeah,
over Witch because you still have like that turn you can deal 8, and that takes
right.
Witch 3 or 4 turns to do that, and that's turns you as Flamecaller can still be like developing your board and playing lands and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I like being able to actually tap to draw sight. Like you get to play bigger stuff as long as you're willing to kind of go slower with
Yeah.
Flame Caller, because you only need to tap once to deal like a crazy sum of damage, and that's the advantage that he has over Witch. But Witch is definitely scary.
Yeah.
I haven't actually played against a Witch yet, but I can imagine it's pretty tough.
Yeah, no, the control the witch can have with like the discount or the taxing of one. The 2 damage is nice when you can work it in, but I don't know. I think witch is still gonna be figured out. But uh, what brought
Yeah.
you to Flamecaller as like your like underlooked like I'm gonna work on this deck?
So I was building like upgraded precons for like my like local scene that like we've had like 4 learn to play events at like my LGS in the past like 6 or 7 months. And so I would bring like these like upgraded precons to like help people to introduce people to the game. And Flamecaller was the one that like I would play test a lot of them, and like Flamecaller I started to realize was like the least restricted of the elemental like the beta avatars,
Mm-hmm.
because like Geomancer and Wave Shaper, they really tell you to like play sites of that element, and that really hamstrings what kind of spells you can run. And then Spark Mage really wants you to like play like a high density of air spells. But I
Yep.
realized like Flamecaller, he's only asking for fire minions. Like your magics can be whatever, and it doesn't affect Flamecaller too much. But you do want like a high density of that. So I started like really like because I would see a lot of like mono fire Flamecaller lists, and I was like, there's nothing that's really telling me to like go mono fire here. Like there's a lot of good fire minions, and you can just kind of like run them and then run some good magics. And like I don't it's that was kind of how it started. Like at first it was just fire air. Then I discovered the Rift Valley tech, and I was
Yeah.
I was like, I'm really cooking here.
No, when I forget when we talked, I think we played a game or something, and I was like asking about Rift Valley, and he's like, it's a better summoning sphere that's not dead in my hand later in the game." I was like, that was a huge
Yeah.
light bulb moment. It's like, oh, that's really really clever. I really like that.
Yeah. And
So, uh,
it's good like with Flamecaller because Flamecaller shoots a projectile.
mhm.
So if you're able to shift the Rift Valley into your opponent's like front center column, if they're not playing a very mobile avatar, like if you're against a sorcerer who doesn't like to move a lot, you now have 3 sights in that center column. You're like looking at them dead in the eyes. They can't play minions to body block your projectile.
Gotcha.
So you're kind of like holding them at gunpoint with a Rift Valley like in the middle.
Very cool. Yeah, and then this deck, when what is the main game plan? Like you're trying to get to 4 mana and then like slowly get to 6 and play some bigger stuff.
That's definitely it. Yeah, you're gonna draw one sight like in the early rounds. You'll get to 4 mana on 4, and from there, like maybe depending how your hand works out, like you might want to get to 5. Like if you want to go 2 drop, 3 drop, or something like that, like soon you'll do that. But generally, you're gonna make use of the fact that Flamecaller doesn't need to tap a hold, but like he has a tap ability, but it's not like Sorcerer or like Wave Shaper where like you do, or Witch where you want to
Mm-hmm.
do it all the time. You can bank that damage, and so I'm often tapping to draw sites, and then I'll play a site the next turn, or I'll just draw another one because like deserts, or like there's a lot of like utility sites where you're gonna want to play it at the right time, and so sometimes if you're not feeling the site that you have, just tap for another one. It doesn't really cost you much. The a majority of the deck is playable at 4 mana. There's only like a couple of heavy heavy mana investments.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I built I have a flame collar list that I've been working on as well, and I took a lot of inspiration off of this. I think I'm playing more like water sites as utility stuff, but I kind of cut the disenchant and common sense, but I still kept the Rift Valley because that ability to like move your opponent's stuff unexpectedly is so strong.
Yeah, no, it's so good.
Yeah.
There's great synergy with fire minions, and like yeah, it's just it can disrupt what your opponent is doing. Maybe they're playing some type of like fortress type of strategy where like you break it open with Rift Valley, or you can like reposition their units
Yeah.
to like attack them or something.
Makes a lot of sense. What did you find that didn't work in Flame Color that you tried out? It's like seems really good, but then you kind of play it more, and you're like, this doesn't really work the way I wanted it to work.
Um, Seasoned Sellsword was a card that
Okay.
like I had it, like I played a couple of games with it, and it's only an elite, so you're not gonna see it every game. The first time it came up, I was immediately like, no, this has to go. Because you never like when your opponent can like discard on their turn to gain control of it, and then it's not summoning sick, like you can't use it the turn it enters play, but like if when you pass to your opponent, they get to discard, and then they have it and they can swing, and then like they do whatever else on their turn, it goes
Yeah.
back to you. You want this season sellsword back, so you're gonna discard something, and then it's tapped because you didn't control it at the start of your turn, and then you'll play out the rest of you discarded something, it's your cell sword again. You're gonna pass to your opponent, they're gonna discard, it's gonna stay tapped for the rest. It's a two
Yeah.
mana, deal 4 to yourself, and then both players discard a card like each turn. Like it created a really funny game state because especially um like sorcerer is very popular, so it'll come up a lot. Like I'm tapping to like draw sight. It says discard card, not spell, so I would just tap for a sight, discard the sight, whereas like these like sorcerer players would like tap for 2 spells, and they
Yeah.
would get to kind of choose like the one they don't really want. But like yeah, you're kind of just like nobody is advancing their mana because you're
Everybody's
either like
discarding
tapping
cards.
to draw a sight
Yeah.
to discard, and like if you decide, no, I got it, I need 5 mana, or I need 6 now, like you're probably gonna have to take 4 from the season sellsword, and like it never it doesn't play out how you expect it to.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, discard outlet. I can discard my minions and throw it at them, right? Like that's the idea there. But yeah,
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 I don't love that idea because part of the strategy, I guess, with the deck is like get value out of if you're not discarding them for anything, then I don't know, you're just pitching your hand. I'd rather just play my minions, try to push some damage or at least block,
or let them use
and
some
then
removal on them, like use their resources.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I could see like it is a good discard outlet. So if you're gonna play like a reanimator type of deck with
yeah,
Raise Dead or something like that, then Season Sellsword is really good. But just as a way to fuel your cemetery for Flamecaller, that's not really. I don't think that's why you would. I just thought it would be good as a 2 mana 4 power unit that also gives me
two
2
threshold.
fire in the
Yeah,
cemetery. Yeah.
yeah. I think the I have some people in the locals play Flamecaller. The sneaky one they have is Cauldron Crones, sacking their minion, drawing a card, and throwing the minion at me.
Yeah.
That was really cool to
That
see.
that is a good one. I like there are times where I run all 3 poison novas in
Yeah,
here, and sometimes you'll cast that to clear the board, including your own minions,
Oh,
just
interesting.
to fill up your cemetery.
Okay.
You don't want to do that just to kill your minions, but like if you're, like
If
kill 2
you
of theirs,
yeah,
kill 2 of yours.
if you can trade up on the poison nova, that sounds really good. Um,
Yeah.
the other interesting one here, not a lot of people play, is Doomsday Prophet. Um,
I love this guy.
yeah.
I think, it's Doomsday Prophet and Infernal Legion. I think are like that's why you're playing Flamecaller. This deck is a lot like Fury Road, and like you could easily just put sword. There's obvious differences. Like I'm playing air here. Like it's
Mhm.
not an exact like 1-for-1, but like I have the Dragonets, the Kobolds. A lot of them play Strider. Maybe not anymore with AL, but they used to play Strider. The Cavalry, Sandworm. Like there's a lot of like Fury Road stuff in here. And if you're gonna make this a Flamecaller deck, Infernal Legion is a house, and Doomsday Prophet is like a tactical nuke. Because if you have like the Jihad out or you have a Rift Valley in a position, you can summon the Doomsday Prophet near the enemy avatar, and then you tap Flamecaller, and you can do like you can one shot him if you have 10 damage in your cemetery, but oftentimes you're looking at like 14. Which again, if you did like any significant amount of damage in the early game,
They
it's
should.
just an
Yeah.
out of nowhere like nuke, and
Yeah.
it's
If
it's
they're at
so
like
it
12 to
doesn't.
15, they're in the danger zone,
Yeah,
right?
they're in danger. They're in danger. Uh, like it doesn't come up a whole lot because he's a unique. Sometimes he comes too early, or like sometimes he comes too late. Like they're already at door, and you're just looking for a finisher, and like But it maybe isn't the best in slot option, but I think he's a lot of fun.
I'll tell you. So I'm gonna take you. This is the list I've been working on, my flame collar list. I have warp spasm in that for that same kind of idea. I
Yeah,
if I have Infernal Legion or some kind of minion that sticks around for a turn or
yeah.
two, and getting that explosive turn, and then flame collar for 8. I think the best. I had it set up to do 20 in a turn, but my graveyard got exiled off of a pillar, so I only did 17 in a turn.
That yeah,
Yeah.
that one's brutal.
Yeah,
The
so
one thing, a lot of times, if you, a lot of times opponents like will sort of give away that they have pillar,
yeah, just hold
because like
hand.
you'll see them with a sight in hand for like 5 turns, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, man, what are you doing? Or like they'll draw a sight. This happened in the league where one of the in the top cut, one of the opponents drew it, and as soon as he does, he's like, how much damage is in your cemetery? And then I'm like, I give him the count, and then he's like, okay, and then he doesn't play the sight, but he draws like another sight next turn. I'm like, that's a pillar. So
He's
you have to like play around that and like know, even if you're not gonna get like a huge swing of damage, that like you're gonna get something and you're gonna mitigate their healing.
yeah.
But sometimes sometimes they'll play it like you can't. They won't always hold on to it and like kind of let you know about it.
The one I've been really really cool new site is Funeral Pyre, banishing up to 3 cards from
Yeah,
one cemetery is a thing you're gonna have to look out for in the future. It's really good against
yeah.
like Archmagio and Death Speaker.
And Death Speaker, and that's what's scary because those are like much more like relevant avatars than Flamecaller. Like he's kind of like just like catching some shrapnel with that site. Like,
Yeah, I was like, oh, it also works against Frame Caller, but it was mostly a Death Speaker hate card for sure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. What are your like tips to Flame Caller? Is it a mid range deck where you're just like trying to look for that one big explosive turn, or is it like an incremental damage you just attack throughout the early game, or what do you think Flame Caller's like main goal is?
So I think there's a lot of different ways to play it. This like so in 3-color Flamecaller, I try to be slower and like more value oriented. And I will get into that, but I think you can also do like I think now mono fire is probably possible with Warhorse and Siege Giant. You
Hmm.
now have like in element ways to move Flamecaller without tapping. Before we only had leap attack, which was like terrible. And I think like just fire air, and forego like I literally only play Earth for common sense, and I guess Sir Morian is in there because I think
Yeah.
he's pretty good.
No, Sir
But
Moriel's great.
really, yeah. But yeah, I think this deck, the 3 color, is really trying to sort of contest the board with its early minions. You'll take trades. You'll try to get some incremental damage with effects like the Dragonets and the Kobolds. You do have like a bit of charge with the Lion and the Cavalry. Lion really, unless if you're not hitting the Avatar, isn't going to actually push damage. But you're really just trying to contest the board. You're not really worried about doing too much damage because the longer the game goes out, the more damage Flamecaller is packing. And so like how do I put it? Oh yeah, and Infernal Legion like is also like a good way to deal 3 if you have the site set up or Jihad out. Good at clearing the board. You're really just trying to go card for card with your opponent. You can use your life as a resource a little bit. Like if it's a bad block for you, just take the damage and then you'll kill that minion like some other way. If and you'll have a big turn where you're dealing like 12, 14, 16 damage. It doesn't have to be with the Prophet. It can be explosive with the Prophet. Like it could be like a turn 6 like nuke. But if you're just kind of like dragging the game out, eventually you'll get there and then you line up the shot. That's how this deck is sort of aiming to play.
Cool. Uh, have you played with what's the lethal dagger? Poison dagger,
Poisonous
yeah,
dagger, yeah.
yeah. Like
Um,
be able to throw
no,
smaller minions with the threshold counts, but not like one big turn.
Yeah, I haven't done I don't think that's for this deck. I think that is like definitely a strategy that you could go for. And it makes sense because you're kind of like you're gonna get that value out of your minion who's on the board, and then if in your that one minion in your cemetery is gonna like remove a card from your opponent, right? It's just like a
Yeah.
kill spell. Um yeah, definitely like it makes sense, but
Oh,
I like it more in Spark Mage,
yeah, that's
where
fair.
you have way more control over the damage that you're dealing, and like as long like you can run out of like resources in the cemetery with Flamecaller. It's a lot harder to run out of like spells in hand with Spark Mage.
I,
So
how good would
I haven't.
Sorry, how good would Flamecaller be if you could choose to like throw one or two minions instead of the whole thing all at once?
That is where like yeah, now you're talking like Poisonous Dagger.
Yeah.
That'd be really good because if you're not like even if you're not looking at it to push damage on the opponent, you can you just kind of have a 0 mana kill spell at all times,
Yeah, that makes
as long
sense.
as like your cemetery is full, and like that would be very good. And I don't think it would be too strong either.
No, I think that'd be a cool little change to Flamecaller that they could definitely errata or just like yeah.
Yeah, it provides decision making to the player, so it would feel good.
Yeah, I like to more give me more decisions to make, the better I feel because then it's my fault when I suck and lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna bring up my list here, and talk about this a little bit. So like I said before, I have a bunch of sideboard cards, but uh, Pillars of Zeros is like a bit of a non bow in this list, but I found that sometimes I just die really quickly when playing other stuff, so a little bit of healing's nice. I thought I had Rift Valleys in this at one point, but I'm playing a lot more minions than you are because I found that I kept my hand kept becoming filled up with a bunch of magic spells I couldn't spell or cast. So I was like, I'm just gonna go all in on the minions and try to be a little more aggressive with like war horses and red crap prowries and stuff like that. But
That
also,
is definitely.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Were you?
But I was gonna say Infernal Legion is I try to get to 6. Infernal Legion is like so much fun, and Infernal Legion is just a cool
Yeah.
card.
No, yeah, running out of minions is a real thing in Flamecaller. I mulligan like just for minion. If it's not a minion, it's going back in the deck.
Gotcha.
And then Common Sense does I do have like minions that can be grabbed with that. So oftentimes if I don't think that I have enough, like I'll just preemptively grab it really okay. Back before AL, I had more ordinary minions, but I just have the cavalry and the sandworm now. Uh, but yeah, there used to be more. I used to run violimps. I actually don't have any of them anymore.
Okay.
I still think they're good though, and I think like I don't know, maybe I can find a cut for them.
Yeah.
But I just need to do some experimentation. Fire got a lot of good cards were added for Flamecaller, so it's gonna take a bit to figure out like what the most optimal list is. One thing
Absolutely.
I'm considering is, do I still want Outback Strider or do I want the Red Cat Poweries now?
I've been
Um,
really enjoying the priorities, just because they come in and trade with something. I'm fine with that. If they come in and hit for 3, I'm fine with that as well. It's this
yeah,
thing that they're gonna have to deal with, or else they're just gonna take too much damage from it. Strider is a really cool card though, but yeah, it's just that come in and do something idea. I really like
yeah.
the priorities. How about Hammers Ablaze? I run Sinkhole in my list, and
Yep.
turn 3 Sinkhole feels really really good. But I assume turn 3 Hamlet's Ablaze kind of does a similar thing.
Yeah, Hamlet's Ablaze is there. So if I remember correctly, it doesn't like have a range. You can conjure it anywhere.
Yep.
That's what I'm liking more than Sinkhole. But it's there because that new card from AL, the Impenetrable Cops,
Yeah.
really just
Okay.
like shuts off your avatar. So and it's ordinary, so it's great. So you can be common sense for it if that site comes up. And I haven't really, honestly, I haven't seen anybody playing that site yet, so maybe I was a bit reactive in adding Hamlet's Ablaze in, but you can still hit like dual sites, or like you can like try to
That's
mess
right.
with people's threshold.
Absolutely. Like Ringer Morgan is the best card from the set, but how do you feel it plays in Flamecaller? I felt like my Flamecaller was very static for a lot of the game, so I couldn't get up and like start
Yeah,
painting.
I don't know if it's right now. The common consensus is it goes in every deck, so I put
Yeah.
it in this deck. But I don't. Maybe you don't need it. The life gain is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what really matters with it. Then it's a Highland Princess target, and it's yeah, like the life gain is pretty nice because in like this list in particular is trying to be slower, so like life gain is kind of relevant.
Gotcha.
But like Angel's Egg is a bit too much of an investment.
Yeah, Angel's Egg off the top on turn 5 feels real bad, right? But a Ring of Morgan
Yeah.
on turn 5 is like, okay, I can work with this.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, hmm. What else I got for you? What do you think, like, in the future would make Flamecaller the top tier deck? Like, what cards do you want to see? Or is it just more better fire minions like we got with AL? Or what do you wish to see for Flamecaller?
Hmm. Um. So I am pretty happy. Like we got a lot of 2 fire threshold minions. So like that was really good. Like that was a clear upgrade for Flamecaller. Even some 3s, and I don't really expect there to be like a ton of 3s, but like more threshold on the minions is always better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we got Morgana, and like card draw is something that I'm just a person. I like to draw cards. I don't if you're like playing a more aggro list, you maybe don't care about it as much. I'm not like stoked about running Grandmaster Wizards in here,
Yeah.
and if Fire got more card draw, like that would be a benefit, I
Or
think.
or even like impulse draw, or like it just ripped it off the top. You don't use it, it goes to your yard, and then you still get value
Yeah,
off of it.
I kind of I view Morgana as like that impulse draw where
Mm-hmm.
like if you lose her, you lose those cards. But so it's definitely not quite impulse draw, but it'd be cool if that was something that mechanic of like summoning a spellcaster who draws their own spells is something that they like expand on in future sets, because I think that'd be like a very unique way to do impulse draw
Gotcha.
in this game.
Cool. Any last tips or tricks for anybody watching who wants to play Flamecaller?
Last tips or tricks. Just save your blinks. Don't cycle blink on turn 2 unless they're gumming up your hand. If you have like 2 of them, 3 of them, I always keep a blink for when I need it. I really don't like to just 2 mana draw a card. Blink is blink is, you're always gonna cast it the turn that you put them to door, because that's how you line up your shot. So you just kind of just always are gonna want one in hand, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen that for sure. Like when I first started playing Flamecaller, I was like, oh, I'll just cycle the blink, and then turn 5 or 6, I get in a door, and it's like I have no way to get my avatar into a position where I need to get the final
Yeah.
blow or like get him to door. And blink and movement spells in Flamecaller had felt like it's the kill spell, right? And you don't want to burn your kill
Yeah.
spells early in the game.
And it also actually sets up a lot of death blows with kobolds or dragonets or even the legion. Any unit who has some type of like proximity damage effect,
Mhm.
you can just blink them to where the avatar is. And
Or blinking a
yeah.
charge minion the turn it comes in.
Yep, or
Yeah.
blinking a charge minion.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Totally forgot about that one. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for going through Flamecaller and talking about it. So you have a YouTube channel. Pretty sure it's just Roaring Turkey, right? You do a lot of in-person gameplay.
Yeah, recently I was doing TTS like for the past couple of months, and then recently I got like a tripod, and me and my friends have been doing live like paper gameplay. Probably I'm not done with TTS, but I it's much easier for me to record like the live than like the tabletop. So
Yeah, that
kind of
makes
been
sense.
enjoying that,
All right.
and the community has been giving me a lot of feedback, and I've been working to like improve and make it as like enjoyable to the viewers
Yeah,
as I
it's
can.
hard to live up to the Drew's on the play production value.
Yeah, I know. I don't have a background in this, you know? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, man, everybody go check out Rolling Turkey. I'll leave a link in the description. I'll see you next time. Hopefully, I do some more of these. I think Geomancer's next on my list. Just find somebody in the community to talk about Geomancer. But if you have any suggestions, let me know. Welcome, everybody. We've got Flamecaller this week. Flamecaller and Geomancer have been really fun to play in this past couple weeks. I've really enjoyed the aggression that Flamecaller has, and Geomancer has a lot of consistency about it. So I've really been enjoying those two avatars. But this deck here is a list I've slowly built up over some time. Took some inspiration off of Roaring Turkey's list, his 3-color Flamecaller that did well in the last league. Playing Rift Valley for tearing apart some sites to get into a defensive avatar, playing air movements for some positioning, and just a lot of minions. I think I'm at like 34, 35 minions and about 12 or 15 non-minion cards. So play a minion every single turn. When one of them finally sticks around, play a Warp Spasm, Trinket, and just go to town. Or I have a lot of charge minions in the deck too, so they come down and attack and do something. But we'll get into it, and I would like to say thank you to my opponent here. Archmagio is another really cool avatar from Ethereum Legends that I probably need to play a few games with, but it's very akin to the Death Speaker card advantage where you get to play your cards again. But almost it's even better than that because you can feel your graveyard so spectacularly well. So here, I played Wizard Tower turn 1, and Wizard's Den. And Wizard's Den in this list is a discard outlet almost too. I don't really mind throwing away a minion into my yard because I still get value off of that. Something I really enjoy about Flamecaller is that yes, my minions get removed all the time, but that's just sorcery, right? But I'm still getting value from my minions getting removed. They're building up the big attack. Um, I really enjoy Flamecaller more than Witch in aggressive builds because you're playing a lot of the same cards as an aggressive Witch deck, but the Witch has to stop at 4 mana. In Flamecaller, I want to get to 4 mana as quickly as possible still, but after that, turn 5, 6, and 7, I can tap and draw a site while still drawing spells and still playing something every single turn. Um, the big finisher in this deck is Infernal Legion. Infernal Legion is such a cool card in my mind. It's just the artwork's really cool. The effect is really strong. If it doesn't get dealt with, it just takes over the game really fast. And so I've also added some water sites to this list, playing Oasis for water and the Grenade, the fire, air, water, three-color land. And also a cool interaction with smokestacks. Those three-color lands can be played anywhere nearby smokestacks because it removes that downside, kind of like out color out of space. This is a bit of a minion light hand. I only have the red cap prowries in hand. I really like to have two minions in hand at any given time, and Infernal Legion doesn't count yet because it's just so far off being able to play. Infiltrate is a great finishing card. It makes blocks really, really annoying. And the really cool card I've never really played with was Warp Spasm. But Warp Spasm in Flamecaller, your minions die, but it doesn't really matter because you get to throw them at it. And if I can deal 8 in a turn with Warp Spasm, it is just very, very strong. And here with the Joyous Grenade, I really got to work on my pronunciations, but it has that water threshold, so any minion I play there can't be buried. And in this game, it's going to come up and be highly important. Red Crap is a great aggressive card. Witch plays it. It has charge. It has to attack every single turn. And if it dies, it doesn't really matter if it dies because it has that 2 threshold I can throw at my opponent. To speak to Archmagio a little bit, Archmagio is... I've seen a very... it's mostly a controlling list, or you're hard into burn, and you're like playing lightning bolts for 6 mana, yeah, 6 damage for the 1 spell essentially. But in Flamecaller, I'm also playing the Funeral Pyre. Funeral Pyre is a great site that I think most fire decks probably want to play a 3 of. It hoses Deathspeaker, it hoses Archmagio, and if you're playing against a Flamecaller, it's great against Flamecaller too. Just being able to remove value or resources from the game is really strong. And so here my opponent plays Highland Princess and gets the Ring of Morrigan. In another game on this video, I think it's game 3, my opponent gets Ring of Morrigan, and I have a hard time. It doesn't like win the game outright, but then you go, it's late game and don't understand why my aggression kind of failed. It's because Ring of Morrigan was able to clean up a lot of minions and gain some life. Ring of Morrigan is... people know it's a really good card, but it's very sneakily incremental value every single turn and every time you play a spell. So here I get to 6 mana and play my Infernal Legion. I specifically play my Infernal Legion on a water site because I know my opponent probably has a barrier or some way to deal with this. And I have a Warp Spasm in hand, and so my line here that I'm thinking about is next turn, attack with Infernal Legion if it survives, with Warp Spasm, deal 12. And then I have, I think, 3 or 4 mana threshold in my graveyard to throw with my Flamecaller. So my goal here is to do 19 or 20 in a turn. That's what you really have to be careful with the... I feel like a lot of decks have that explosive power nowadays. And so here he has a Pillars of Xeros, and it kind of defeats my plan, but I'm still going to Warp Spasm and deal, I think, 15 in a turn. Here he has a Gigantism, and Gigantism in Archmagio is very, very scary. To be able to play that twice and deal an extra 12 damage off of 2 spells is really strong. Also, Divine Healing in Archmagio is really scary because that 1 Divine Healing represents 14 life you have to beat through. So in a lot of these Archmagio lists or these games, I'm really trying to figure out my big explosive turn other than just the incremental little burn turn. So Warp Spasm, doubling my Infernal Legion power to 12, and then at the end of turn, there's going to be 2 triggers. but since I control both triggers, I can order the triggers the way I want. So I'm gonna put the sacrifices at end of turn on the storyline first, and then put my Infernal Legion trigger on the storyline. So then when it resolves, my Infernal Legion will resolve, dealing 3, and then it'll get sacrificed. So here, if he hadn't played Pillars of Arrows or moved out of the way, I was able to throw 4 damage with Flamecaller and deal, how much damage was that? 12 plus 3, 15 damage with my Infernal Legion. So here, sorry about the cuts, but we were discussing on how best it was for him to get another card into the yard to use later. So we ended up with, you could bury your own princess, but what you have to do here to throw and bury in the yard, you can still cast it, but you need a legal target, and so you can unburrow spiders and bury it again, and then it goes into the yard. Also, another thing you can do if you have a minion on a water site, you can bury something on a water site. The spell will try to bury it, but it won't work. But the spell will still resolve. So here I know I didn't do 20 in a turn, but I still did 15 in a turn, right? And so I'm still in a very good position, and now I have a really good follow up with a lot more minion pressure. And Brother Knight in Flamecaller is a great card. Brother Knight in general is a great card with the 2 fire threshold, but the thing is you get 2 bodies from it. So here I played it on another water site, and then my Dragonets is also on a water site, so that's really where I wanted to be. Just the only way to remove these now is with a Thunderbolt, and I think throughout the game he's used a couple of them. So he exiled 3 spells, cast Gigantism on his spider, which I don't know the exact wording on Gigantism. I think it says an ally gets whatever, so I think that still works. But I block with a Brother Knight just to save damage. I don't think I really needed to block, but I know if he plays a minion to block my other one, I have a follow-up safety play just to stay at 10 life. It's a little bit safer. If he doesn't have a minion there, I can deal 4 or 9 on damage on board, so that was his best block that we decided. But just had the cards that line up really well, and then was able to steal Merlin and use Merlin's ability on my turn to cast Flanking Maneuver, which is really fun. So here it was a good game. Just had a really good draw and played a minion every single turn. Here is a game, I think this is our first game, but I wanted to highlight this game because the power of Sinkhole on the play as your 3rd site, to be able to push your opponent back to 2 mana on turn 3 and maybe mess up their threshold can't be understated. Sinkhole on turn 3 to really remove a key threshold or the one of, and it's like a very rough way to start the game. This can really punish a lot of 3-color decks if you get their splash color, or if you just get a color they're kind of short on. This is a really good play in Avatar of Air. If you have Sinkhole turn 3 and play a 3-drop and mess up their threshold, as long as you're on the play, it is so punishing. But I think the downside of my Flamecaller list is it doesn't have a lot of early game. I think the only 2 drops are Warhorse and what's the other one? Oh, Violimp. Violimp. Those are really the only 2 drops. I have a lot of 3 and 4s because that's just where a lot of the charge and like incidental damage comes from. I think you could change a little bit of this to add maybe a princess because it is already playing air. But I really enjoy the heavy minion. Play a minion every single turn, and if they don't answer it, that's what the whole goal is. So you really have to play a high minion percentage to do well with a minion-based deck, because you're just going to run out of minions to play, and then if you have all your spells that are minion payoffs like Blink or Flanking Maneuver, Grapple Shot, you're just going to have a bunch of dead cards in hand. So here, the Sinkhole, his only Earth site, his first site was a Wizard's Den, which isn't an air site, it's just a utility site. So then he discards, I think, oh, Disenchant or something. But uh, also Wizard's Den and Archmagio is a great land because even if he attacks it, that's not, you still get value. You get a third of a card almost, a third of a card into your graveyard. Um, but in this game, it ends up being 20-0 just because of this one sinkhole play. So in any aggressive decks, I think playing sinkhole and knowing how to play sinkhole on turn 3 to pop one of your opponent's sites is really good. And if you're the opponent who knows somebody else is playing sinkhole, play your second site up or your most crucial threshold back. Just you got to protect your threshold. I think a lot of people are playing 3 and 4 color decks at the cutting edge of threshold counts, um, but a lot of threshold 3 and 4 color decks are really susceptible to threshold attacks with sinkhole or with the new Hamlet's Ablaze and other land destruction. So here, I'm just gonna Funeral Pyre, destroy his graveyard. So this is another reason why Funeral Pyre is so good. Um, Even if I attack this Wizard's Den and he gets his third of the card by discarding it, Funeral Pyre just negates that. So it's really just a -1 card in card advantage. So here's the end of the game. It wasn't a really interesting game. It was just a bit of a one-sided game. So just to move along, but the power of Sinkhole on turn 3 can't be understated. So in this game, it was a very good example of Flamecaller, at least my list Flamecaller, of playing a minion every single turn, always having some kind of threat. Um, I send back a Lightning Bolt here because it's not really what I want to do. And Archmage is not playing a lot of minions I need to remove, but I just want more minions to just keep playing them. Turn 1 Ruins is a great site threshold fixer. Turn 2, I have to play Funeral Pyre because I want to hold Tower for turn 3 so I can play Sarkhan Raiders on 3 and start beating in. And then if that doesn't work out, I have a Kobold that can deal damage the turn it comes in. So that's kind of like Charge. It does something the turn it comes in. That's what the key about of a lot of aggressive decks. You're not going to win a lot of aggressive deck constructed stuff by just playing a minion and then it gets removed, and playing a minion it gets removed, playing a minion it gets removed, or it's playing a minion and it gets answered by playing a bigger minion. So a lot of aggressive decks need value the turn they come in, and then also my ability to play my River of Flame forward and central like this is a great spot for me because then now I can deal with anything subsurface wise or left or right of up here. My opponent is playing a very defensive line of like playing to his back row, which is a really good strategy against a lot of aggressive decks. I think I would like to see some more defensive sites like Free Cities or Perilous Bridge like in game 1, but very well. Airmost Mercenaries is in Flamecaller is an interesting include. If you really need a finishing firebolt, you can do kind of like a bait and switch. Like I'll throw all my minions at you to deal a bunch of damage to you, but and get you to door maybe. But I don't have any more minions in my yard. But I have an Airmost Mercenaries in my hand. I can discard a random card to it, and usually I only have 2 or 3 cards left. So Airmost Mercenaries can help me finish games by getting an extra minion in my yard unexpectedly. Here, I think I should have killed the Field Laborers and kind of kept him off mana, but at this point, he only has 1 card in hand, so I wasn't too worried about it. But then he rips a Merlin off the top, so that's his card advantage, and now he has a bunch of mana thanks to Field Laborers. So now he gets to bury my guy. So I should have gotten the Field Laborers, but oh well. I have a Sarkhan Raiders plus Trinket Hammer to take care of Merlin. And then the other thing I'm like kind of lining up to, he has a spider in front of my River of Flame. So I'm like, I have Firebolt. I can deal with the spider unexpectedly, and so I'm trying to kind of bait a spider movement or something like that. And I know I have blinked and flanking maneuvers, so that gets around the spider disablement. But he has a second spider, so that was a kind of funny there. But my next play is going to try to get my Sarkhan Raiders into off of the spider and deal with the spider underneath the windmill with my firebolts. And I get really lucky with my draw as a blink, and he also has a blink, but um, being able to like remove the spider's ability to lock down minions, and honestly, spiders is the best answer to a lot of Flamecaller minions because it doesn't throw them in the yard, kind of like Death Speaker. It wants the minions in the yard, so spider's really good against that as well. And here's Funeral Pyre just destroying the graveyard, taking 2 lightning bolts and a berry, just any removal out of there. I think I left him with blinks and some other non-mattering card, but here I'm going to be able to firebolts from off the spiders, and then here I kind of debate if I should imp the apprentice wizard or the field raiders, but I kind of learned my lesson. It was like, no, I got to remove the mana. Sarkhan Raiders attacking, I think the wizard, yeah. Just keeping the board clear is like a really good game plan in a lot of sorcery decks or just matches. And here is Divine Healing, and I'm really worried because this Divine Healing represents 14 life, another 7 after this. So then he exiles his 3 cards to fire magic missiles my raiders. I kind of understand this play, but now his Divine Healing's out in his yard and kind of can't do a whole lot. Now I have enough mana for my Infernal Legion and pressure with Infernal Legion, dealing 3 just off of the end of turn. And then I have Warhorse. So I'm expecting him to move Warhorse underneath his avatar, or his spider underneath his avatar. But being with Warhorse, Warhorse is a wonderful card too. It's free movement that comes with a 2/2 body. Being able to play that and move something and attack is so surprising. Same thing with Courser, but Courser's arguably almost better because you can have that extra movement. So if I had a Courser, I wouldn't need the second Warhorse. But this turn, he's at 12, and I'm trying to find a way to get him to door. So I think I have 8 threshold in my yard. So 8, and then Warhorse twice up, and attack with Warhorse and move my guy up with a Trinket is going to be enough to do 12 damage in a turn. And it's these like explosive surprise turns you're trying to set up. It's kind of combo-esque where the whole game beforehand isn't really necessary for being able to win. It's chip damage, it's resource trading, it's getting enough minions into your yard to deal with all your opponent's stuff and setting up for a really big turn. So it has that big splashy turn. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but it's really, really fun to do. And then so Rita here is a great minion, a defensive minion almost, but the 6 power 6/6 is just good. And then it has a really strong ability of minions can't untap. But I have the grapple shot for the win. But yeah, tell me what you think. Should I keep doing these like talkovers, camera in the corner guy? But thank you everybody. I'll see you next time. Like and subscribe. I'll talk to you later.